Cocaine, meth, marijuana, and caffeine. What do these all have in common? They're drugs. Now, many people will be like, why did you include caffeine in there? It's not on the same level. And I included it in there to emphasize the severity of caffeine. That you're right, it may not be a Schedule I drug. It may not be that severe, but it does have consequences, and it has side effects that many people don't realize nowadays. And especially within our college student demographic, ages 18 to 24, more and more students are becoming addicted, dependent, reliant upon caffeine, upon espresso, upon coffee, upon caffeine tablets. And I believe that that dependency is a direct result of stress from various activities, whether it be your project, your 10-page paper, your finals, midterms, if you work at a job, if you have extracurricular activities going on, whatever the stress is, it's causing students to turn to caffeine to stay up and to keep themselves alert and awake. Now, caffeine has long-term side effects that many people don't know about, don't realize, and they don't understand the harm that caffeine can actually do. So we'll start there. What is caffeine? Caffeine is a stimulant. It is a mental alertness drug. And with that being said, a stimulant means that it directly affects your central nervous system and your cardiac muscles. So it's used to keep yourself awake, to give yourself that buzz to keep going, which is why it's used in the morning to wake up, or at night if you want to pull it all night or stay up later than you think you might. So actually, the European Journal of Pharmacology reported that caffeine does in fact have short-term and long-term side effects. The short-term may include and are not limited to headaches, nausea, or anxiety. And many people are like, okay, that's fine, not a big deal. But the long-term side effects for an obscene amount of caffeine use, they're not limited to Parkinson's disease, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. Hardly anybody even knows that that could be a consequence from an over intake of caffeine. And people know the lower side effects, the shaky hands, the anxiety, the insomnia, the inability to fall asleep, and the dependency, and yet they continuously intake caffeine. They don't stop, and they don't see it as a threat. They see it as their friend, their cup of joe. And that is something that we all need to be more aware of. We need to be more responsible for. The growing dependency of caffeine is due to stress. It is a stress-induced dependency and addiction that many college students are engulfed in. They find themselves surrounded by caffeine. There's coffee shops in college towns that stay open until 4 in the morning, serving you that 2 a.m. espresso, that 3 a.m. cup of coffee. Whatever it may be, if you want to stay up late, they're going to supply you with the caffeine that you think you need. And you probably don't. Caffeine is good, but when you have so much of it in your body, it really becomes detrimental to your health, your well-being, and to you as a person, because whenever it leaves your system, it's going to catch up to you that you're tired, that you haven't slept in 24 hours, that you need to sleep, and that your body is tired. And caffeine is continually on the increase. It's fascinating, actually. NPR did this study where in 2002 they surveyed random college students aged 18 to 24 and asked them if they had consumed a cup of coffee within the last 2 weeks. 25% reported yes. 2012, only 10 years later, they did the study again, asking random college students if they had consumed a cup of coffee within the past 2 weeks. 40% answered yes. In addition to that, many of them included that it had been not within the past 2 weeks, but within the past week. That's almost double in only 10 years, and it's on the increase. Many more students are turning to caffeine when they really just need to take a break, get a good night's rest, and start again in the morning. I believe that there are alternatives to caffeine. One of them being weaning yourself off of it, lowering the milligrams of caffeine that you intake. Whereas your cup of coffee, instead of having your cup of coffee in the morning, maybe have a cup of green tea, which actually has half the milligrams of caffeine than coffee. And so that would be one transitional thing that you can do to get yourself not so dependent upon coffee and caffeine and espresso. Another really healthy alternative actually is fruit. Your strawberries, your blackberries, your raspberries, your blueberries, all filled with natural sugars that give you that alert and awake buzz that caffeine does. And lastly, not an alternative for everybody because you may not have the time. If you're under a time constraint, then you're not going to have the time to go work out for an hour. But working out releases endorphins, and endorphins genuinely make people feel happy. They give you that sense of high, that buzz that you may get from that double shot of espresso. So those are just some alternatives that one could turn to when they need to stay up late, is get a quick workout in, eat some berries, and then start your studying for the night. But the fact of the matter is that stress is not going anywhere. It's undeniable that for the rest of your life, you're going to be in some instance that gives you stress. Whether it's school after you graduate or when you get a job, you're going to be stressed out. And it's how you personally cope with that that affects the caffeine intake. Yes, more students are dependent upon caffeine. Yes, caffeine is becoming a bigger problem. And it's becoming an addiction to people. But it's all reliant on that person and what they choose to do. Side effects are overlooked, downplayed, and underrated, but they're real, and more people need to be made aware of the possibilities that could come from an obscene amount of caffeine intake. It's up to you to choose how you want to manage your stress, and college students are turning to caffeine. Thank you.